Welcome to the International Institute for Facilitation's podcast, Spaghetti on the Wall. I'm Eileen Douse, Chair Emeritus and Director of Assessments for INIFAC. And today I'm joined by Maria Zevaoglu. Hopefully I got that right. She is a certified facilitative leader who's very skilled in international communications and conflict management. She's also coming to us all the way from Buenos Aires. And today we're going to talk about what's involved in being a facilitative leader. Not just a facilitator, but when you harmonize that with leadership. So get ready, because I'm going to have lots of fun. Food fight. It's time for a food fight. Or
Thank you.
Maria says, we're going to throw in some special sauce into that facilitation mix.
Thank you, Eileen. It's very nice for me to be here and share this with you.
Oh, yes.
And talking about what is it to be a leader facilitator, I think maybe my thoughts come around it's a different distribution of power, right? In companies, in groups, where the power is distributed in a different way, you start seeing what emerges in the groups, what is really the insights, the deliverables of that group. So I think that's a really interesting shift in the core belief, let's say, because I think that leaders used to think about, the idea of the authority, of the knowledge, the way people address and approach different groups. And to being a facilitative leader, it has to do about this core beliefs, really believing that the wisdom is inside the group and that people know what are the contents to work with, right?
Yeah.
And in this,
Go
yes.
ahead, because then I want to ask you.
No, because I think this is the most, for me, it's one of the most important things about how do you deal with what really emerges. You have to be aware, you have to be ready to read the situation and to understand what really emerges in the group, not what you have on your thoughts before. Yeah. And from this mini introduction, for me, the core here, it has to do about collaboration, right? About what is it that really means collaboration from the leader point of view, facilitating a group, leading a group, and trying to collaborate. This double click, I think it's a...
I agree. And I want to go back to your thought on power and that giving up power. And you know what? Let's state it. For leaders, giving up power / control can be really scary or unnerving, or you never know what's going to happen, and all the accountability is going to fall on you. So that's tough as a leader, right? Yet, when you and I talked, I loved your shift from power to influence.
Yeah. Yes, and I think this has a lot to do with communications and with the idea of who is in charge. And please, let's do this exercise together about these words that maybe meant something different in the past, or we're used to the meaning or the literal meaning of these words. Yeah. But suddenly we understand that now to really lead and facilitate and get the most of the group, you need to understand that the power is a different thing, that knowledge means a different thing, that control means a different thing. And right now, like working with different companies as well, the new generations, companies are very interested in how do they retain these talents, how do they make new generations engage, right? To their works and to the sense of belongings. Yeah. And so those things are shifting in the companies as well. I was working with some companies this last month, and they had this common thread. They were looking for the ways of retaining younger generations, and they were thinking about benefits in certain ways that it could be really curious or sometimes funny for people that worked in different environments in the past, So like maybe, the gym membership or having fruits on Thursdays. We were really surprised on those things, but it has to do with what is it that new generations are believing or, perceiving as value for them to belong, And so these leaders have have the challenges to decode, to understand this language and this new way of being open to be led, no, in a way.
Yeah, I like your word on decode, because I think leaders have to decode, and as part of decoding, take whatever information they gain, assess it correctly, and then create the right space for that group. And those groups may differ. In a way, I think we might be talking a little bit about what's going to motivate people. And as social beings,
Absolutely. Absolutely, Aileen. And what you just said about what is it exactly that that you can, this decoding, no, you understand that decoding certain things and having that information as a leader makes you shift and rearrange and reprogram and replan what you were up to, because sometimes what comes up, what's emerging in that group, it could be a conflict, it could be something that is under layers. It's not an evident aspect that you can deal directly and you can go and say, okay, if you have a problem, you have to go and talk about it and have difficult conversations. That's in one layer. But now we're talking about a facilitative leader that has to read and decode those other layers to understand that sometimes that superficial conflict, it's not the real one, right?
And you know what? You and my children are older. You're in the midst of being a mother of adolescents.
Yes.
And I remember back then when you have this adolescent, this person that tends to shut down developmentally because they're, going through all the steps to become an adult. And wow, do you have to keep an open mind and listen even when you don't want to hear the information. And I heard things I didn't want to hear. And I think the same is true for a leader, where you want to make the tone, the space, in such a way that people are willing to talk to you. And you may not want to hear it, yet it would be wise for you to want to hear it.
Absolutely, and it's so powerful, the metaphor you're using, because it is exactly like that. I totally agree about when you sometimes you know which way you want to go, or with this situation with the teenagers, no, but sometimes the silence, the space you have to create, it's much more interesting, because in that space is where the real information can come to be decoded. It's not what you can say or you can tell, and this also applies to the group. Sometimes the leader or the person that has the responsibility knows which is the best way to go, or which way, or at what speed they need to go. But if the group doesn't commit, if the group is not engaged, then it's a fake way of advancing. It's very weak, the way that the group is advancing. And so it is with the teenagers. No, you can tell things, but they won't be open to listen to these things if they receive this as an order, or they perceive this as something that they have to do. So I think that this parallel metaphor is a very interesting way to
maybe
describe
to be a
it.
good facilitative leader, you just need to hang out with teenagers more? Is that what we're saying?
No, that's very scary. I won't recommend that. No.
True. And if we're peeling this all around or throwing spaghetti at the wall, I think part of that listening and that allowing silence and being open involves curiosity. I mean, you have to internally want to listen.
And I think you go to a very very new, very central key point, because we're always talking or reading or listening to people that are say you need to active listen, you need to respect the silences. But I guess that maybe the best thing that we can focus here on in this space that we're sharing together is the idea that what is it that it really means, no, and the importance or the responsibility that one has on our own work and or our own inner work. No, when you say you have to respect silence, if you don't have the silence inside yourself, or if you don't make the silence for you, it's very difficult to understand what the silence can produce to others, because silence can be, it's empty, but at the same time it can generate fear, it can generate threat, it can generate different things in other environments. So you need to be aware that you can be able to manage what emerges in that silences. It also applies to teenagers as well, but I guess that responsibility is with oneself. No,
Yeah, that's
it
a
is
whole
important
other
not to.
podcast.
It is, but all these things have their roots in inner skills and inner
Yeah,
growing and learning capacities that one has to do or has to have to in order to be, in the situation to
yeah,
lead and to grow and lead with different groups as well, right?
that's true. That's true. Let's go back to silence for a minute, because what you and I both know about different people, now you put this layer of leader on top of it, and some people have incredibly great imaginations. So if I want to say something to you, or as my leader, and you are silent, my brain might be like, oh, they don't like the idea. Oh, I'm in trouble now. Oh, maybe I need to say something else. So I do think, I totally agree with silence. And I think there's a timing issue with silence. Like, when are you no longer silent? How do you read the situation to know that your silence was or was not beneficial?
Well, you're opening a new portal here to another dimension, Eileen, because of course, this is what I'm trying to kind of transmit about the words, no? Because here words you presented different layers and different portals of dimensions. Because if we're talking about intercultural groups, silence for some cultures mean things that are really different to others. For example, in non-confrontative cultures, where the silence is part of the content, right?
Yeah.
So you need to give that space for people to have eye contact, and then, for example, if you're giving a lecture and nobody asks anything, that silence means different things in different cultures, right? So that kind of silence is one aspect of the silence, but other silence are when things are not comfortable and certain issues are arising and people are silent. Sometimes this silence is about what we talked before. No, we can integrate it with the idea of the distribution of power. Some people keep silence because they need to understand and read the situation, that who goes first, who supports whom in that situation. Are
Right.
those are green letters and lines appear in those scenarios, no?
Yeah.
So the leader, I guess that the reading, and we go back to the inner work.
Yeah.
Your reading is the key, because you need to read, and to read you need to know many alphabets
Yeah.
to continue with the
I
metaphor of the
love it.
decoding.
One of the things that I really like about being a facilitative leader is this concept of, if you are in an organization, you are putting out a lot of money in salary. And when we talk about use the wisdom of the group or get this information, whether it's through silence, whether it's through openness, whether it's through curiosity, why waste money with a leader just coming on saying this is how it's going to be? There's got to be this use of a skill set that pulls out that wisdom, that knowledge of the group, and helps with the relationships in the group to keep it going.
And I guess what we're saying is, for me, the definition of the facilitation. No, if we were to define what is it, the power of facilitation, it's to lower barriers and to
Yeah.
minimize the things that are like the soft things between commas, because they're called the soft skills or the soft things, but people can work more efficiently and more focused and more freely when those barriers are lowered, and this conflicts and this reading, this decodings that we were talking before, can be addressed in a way that everybody feels safe, addressed in a way that the approach can be more about what are the insights that the group is going to bring up, instead of mixing the things and seeing everything as a one thing together, because sometimes people are willing to work, but that there are elephants in the room, and so those elephants in the room sometimes, if we really picture the elephant in the room, if people have to go around the elephant, on top of the elephant, then the work, the efficiency of the work, the productivity of that team goes down.
Right.
So I guess that's the power, for me, it's the power of the facilitation, to understand that you need to lower certain barriers that arise, because we're humans and there are always different perspectives, different ways of seeing things, different ways of working. And the leader needs to address those things in a more subtle way than just openly talk about them.
Right. From an INEFAC perspective and the certification of the Certified Facilitative Leader, some of the competencies certainly are around communication and collaboration, and they're critical, and the presence, that whole power piece. Then there's also this piece about the coaching and the developing of the people, because you're not just taking these people in time, you are working towards the relationship. I don't want to say family, because I think some families are good, some aren't. You're working towards this team, this group of people that want to come to work every day. So from a facilitative leader standpoint, what are some of your thoughts on how to develop your group in a facilitative leader way?
Well, I guess that this is even more complex now, because these leaders, sometimes they have the groups in a hybrid mode, or they have people that come to work, but others that are on a virtual mode. And so, or also internationally with other, time frames. And when you really, this is a whole new title as well. But
I'm not making this easy for you. If you thought you were coming on as a guest to be easy,
I like it.
No. I am picking the wisdom of the room, and you got the wisdom, baby.
Yes, exactly. And it is really tough, because I think that this is like a one-to-one relation in the way you have to see the members of the group, but then the idea of the group and the collaboration is also, the boundaries are not really defined, because sometimes, and it happened to me to work with groups that they were in different countries, in different time zones, and so it is right now, the challenges that leaders are facing, I think it's how do you get this perception of the team members in order to customize a development plan, or to really understand what are the weaknesses or the skills to develop, because there's not so much time for the interaction. So you need to flip or to shift in a different model to understand how the groups are going to interact together in a productive way.
Yeah, now you're talking my language about cross-cultural management, and it is so important. You and I, as people who teach communication, good buddies, good colleagues, you and I can still get into miscommunication of words, right? Hold the space, hold the container, just a simple word. So now you have a leader with a whole group of people who are wanting to be open, yet how they're perceiving the information and how they're responding to the information can be incredibly diverse.
Yes. And so, yes, the way you paraphrase, and the way, how do you check, the emotional check, and the checking situations right now, I think, are more challenging than in other times, no? When you really need to understand if the audience, if your audience, if those people are understanding a common language. We go back to the metaphor of the language, but I think the challenge is about generating a common language, because this common language is the like a intermediate or a neutral space for everyone to make sure you understand each other, because perceptions and cultures are so different in decoding the situations that sometimes I think that, I figure that it is, when it happens with music, it happens with mathematics. It's a common language that you don't need to explain much more.
Yeah.
But when you're talking about this kinds of contents,
Yeah.
the group with the leader, or influenced by the leader, or stimulated by the leader, needs to generate the common language. The common language, the what does it mean for this group, for us? What's our password? You need to create your own passwords.
Ooh, I love it. I love it. So speaking of creating your own password, and even switching metaphors and visual perceptions here around creating, we may throw the spaghetti on the wall, yet we need the great sauce to put on top of it. What suggestions do you have for that secret sauce for anyone wanting to improve their skills as a facilitative leader?
Well, I guess that, yes, that secret sauce has to do with this curiosity, this optimistic way of facilitating, no? Optimistic, but in a very deep way. Optimistic is contagious. You need to be playful, you need to be open, you need to be curious. And for me, the secret sauce, to put it in these words, would be, how do you read the information? How do you read the situation? How do you read the person you have in front of you? How do you read? Those are the tools you need to have. So your reading can be more, you have to widen the bandwidth of your reading. I think that's the secret sauce for leaders in facilitating.
Wow, I love it. Maria, thank you so much for sharing your cross-cultural wisdom. It is always a delight hanging out with you. I gain more information and I have a great time too. So thank you so much.
It was a pleasure. Thank you very much, Eileen. Thank you.